Hey, welcome to Adventures in Angular, the podcast where we keep you updated on all things Angular related. This show is produced by two companies, Top and Devs and Envoy. Top and Devs is where we create top and devs to get top and pay and recognition while working on interesting problems and making meaningful community contributions. And Envoy provides remote design and software development services on the most client friendly business model. The clients only pay after the tasks are delivered and approved. In today's episode, we will talk about what is new in Angular 18. And we will also just briefly mention, because we don't really have a lot of depth about it yet, but we're also going to mention a bit about Angular 18.1. My name is Lucas Paganini, your host in the podcast. Joining me in today's episode are the also hosts, Armin Vardanian.
Hello, everyone. I'm finally back to the podcast.
Subrat Mishra.
Hey, hey.
And our very special guest, which, according to her, is nothing much, just a Google developer expert in Angular and a software freelancer, Rakia Ben Sassi.
Hi everyone, and thanks for having me. Maybe I said just because my early background was actually I was at the beginning of my career a Java developer, and after over a decade I became a JDE, which was not the main maybe expertise or main focus in my career. But thanks
Nice.
anyway.
No worries, no worries. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. And well, let's get to it. So, there are many things that were released on Angular version 18, but I would like to know, Rakia, from your point of view, what are the most relevant ones, and then we can start from there.
So for me, maybe not in the. It was since a while there, the feature deferrable, and I was very happy to see that it has reached a more stable phase in the version 18. And it was also amazing how companies like Build.com have reached an improvement in their bundle size with 50%. Thanks to using this feature deferrable. Besides this, I'm also excited about the improvement toward the use or the development of zoneless Angular application, and which will be hopefully with the use of Signal will let us avoid a lot of struggle with the change detection, especially when the applications goes more complicated. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So a couple of very interesting subjects. If that's okay with you guys, I would rather start with zoneless because I think there's a lot of hype in there, and
Well,
it's a
it's the
subject
star of the
that
show.
yes, a lot of hype, and a lot of people haven't really tried the new experimental zoneless support yet. And well, I guess we can first start with what are the maybe the drawbacks that aren't clear to those that want to try zoneless. Maybe there are things that they don't know that would be problems if they actually did try it.
I think that the change detection topic in general looks like a monster, maybe. And also, when we need to go away from zone, we need to get our hands dirty with Angular config file, Angular JSON, and yeah, we need to take care about a lot of things. This is just my thought on that topic. And maybe a lot of developers don't know how component which are using on push change detection, how they will be impacted by this and the other components. And if they have to migrate everything to Signal or not, and so on. So I think everyone needs to feel more comfortable and have more confidence before they can start on this issue. What's your idea about, or your thought, maybe Armin or Subrat?
I think personally that the community is going to be split for a while, because if you have been developing it with Angular for a while and you haven't paid attention to what change detection is, like, you don't really need to optimize it if you don't care, right? You can just build your software and it will work fine, I guess, in the end of the day. If you don't know about zoneless and one day zoneless becomes the standard, then you're gonna hate it because, well, why do I need it? My application works fine. Why do I need to switch to observable signals? Blah blah blah. But if you have been paying attention and you, I don't know, encounter like the hated expression has checked changed after it has been checked error, right? And you have been trying to optimize everything and so on and so on. You probably already took some steps in the direction of zoneless. For example, using signals, right? Because switching to signals isn't that hard at the end of the day. And now, if you know that for you is going to be an exciting feature, so people are again going to be split in like two different camps. But what I like about the way that the team does it is that they're kind of rolling really slowly with it. Okay, now we have some experimental support for zoneless. Maybe in the next release, we will get some upgrades. I don't know. It also depends on the library, maintainers, because zoneless can break libraries that don't kind of work with it fine, and there's lots of stuff to consider.
Well, one expression came to my mind now. So it was it was about the on push change detection. So whenever any developer needs to or think or want to use the on push change detection, they should be aware of the code design, and they should be aware of the immutability issue and so on. So I think that also for me as any Angular developer, I need to be aware what should I um, take care of on my applications code design when I have to use zoneless. What should I change in my code design? Should they are there some? So that's it's about the code design and how much should I refactor in my application.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. Like these journalists will like people will focus more who already have on push change detection strategy on, or maybe if they care a lot about the how the change detection works, and they will like be eagerly waiting for this change to be go full on, and maybe they are doing some experimentation in their dev environment with the experimental feature. But yeah, at the end, I think how Angular might goes is as it backward compatible. It just like when everything goes zoneless, it just works. So you don't need to worry much about how the zoneless will how you need to handle it. But yeah, if you are doing on push, then you are in a good direction.
Well, if you are thinking about it,
Yeah, yeah.
actually just migrating to zoneless is quite simple in the sense that you just you say provide zoneless change detection and remove zone.js, and it's kind of fine.
Hmm.
Uh, the If you have already using the on push strategy, you also probably will be fine. But the thing is, we don't really know the symptoms of this disease yet because, well, people have tried it experimentally. Obviously, no one uses this on a production application to really know where they can have bugs or whatever. Like I have a personal website. I built it with Angular. I put like experimental zone list on it, but it's a really irrelevant app. Like it's not doing anything complex, right? And that's why it's kind of hard to create content about zone lists right now because what are you gonna say about it? Okay, use this function and remove zone.js from not modules or whatever, and then you're like, okay, it's experimental, don't try it, and then it's over. What I would really love to discuss is what's kind of going on internally, what we know about it, because the people on the team were like very vocal about it. They even shared like the roadmap, right? I think I can pull up the roadmap from somewhere. I'm not sure though that I can find it.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you guys said about libraries is probably the main thing that I don't think people are realizing. It's not just a matter of, oh, I'm starting a new project, so I'm going to go zoneless, because then I can just start zoneless from the get-go. But are the libraries that you want to use in your project also supporting zoneless? Because otherwise, it's just not going to work. So it's it's tricky, because at one hand you want to start using it, at least I do, but there are just so many other pieces that just don't feel stable enough yet that I'm not even sure if it makes sense to use it at all, like unless you're a library author and you want to make your code work with that new standard, then sure. But for people that are writing applications, I'm not sure if it's the right time for that.
Absolutely, you brought to the table a very important point. It's just like when upgrading. It's actually one of the hurdle when why some projects didn't upgrade to higher Angular versions, because they use a lot of libraries that are not ready for the new Angular version. This is one point, and the other points, it's not stable. Some parts are in developer mode, and for me, for example, as maybe PO or someone who has the decision to add new features to the backlog and to the planning of our next sprint, I need to be aware of the business value. It's no when I have a lot of other features and so on, what can I win from it? And can I give it a higher priority so that my developers will spend more time with it, or it's not the right time for it?
And also, if you look at the official blog post when Angular 18 was released, it was written by Minko. And when it comes to defining to announcing, right, the new experimental zone exchange detection, one thing that he mentions is improving composability for micro frontends and interoperability with other frameworks. I think that's really interesting. Like, what does he mean by interoperability with other frameworks? How does Zoneless make Angular more interoperable with React or Vue or whatever, and even for micro frontends for that matter?
Very good question. Who wants
Yeah, I
to
think
be a volunteer to answer?
I have a small opinion here because June was a heavy outside library. Doesn't have in other places. If you're combining that with so for any micro front end, and you need to have those also running in your bundle. Maybe if you're doing server side or client side, then you are removing the zone and having the signals way change detection and everything. It reduce a little bit of weight from the microservice. Like first of all, if you are using a microservice, one service with React, one service with Angular, it's a kind of rare scenario. But yeah, but if you are using it, then it will less burden on the overall. Maybe might
Subrat, I'm sorry, but your audio in the middle started to get weird. Like it was sometimes really, really good, and sometimes I couldn't hear you.
Okay. Is it good now?
It is. It still seems like it's oscillating a bit, but it is good at this particular moment.
Yeah. So what I was saying is, as the bundle, so Joneses will be removed from the bundle. So now you have less load on your overall application. Maybe it is server side or client side, and then that's how you can combine your React and Angular and run together in the browser as a single server, single host.
Oh, so it's just a matter
Actually,
of less
uh,
polyfills
Yeah,
in Bootstrap.
one point, yeah, one of the
I
points.
can add a bigger point to this because I worked with Angular elements. Well, everyone knows that.
Yeah.
And, when you put it in another application, everything in your custom element is wrapped inside Zone.js.
Hmm.
Only your top level component is kind of allowed to emit events or receive attributes from the top down and so on. And it's really hard to interact with that stuff. You also, because of Zone.js, you also get polyfilled async await. And aside the bundle issue, that actually means that you have two different ways of how your fetch requests work, right? If you are using async await in your Angular components, which I personally think you shouldn't, you should stick to observables and so on. But again, it's framework, it supports you writing async await. And if you do that, you can get problems if you're using service workers, for example, right? So there are two more issues, like the issue with web components. You can't just treat them as HTML elements because they're wrapped inside Zone.js and there's lots of stuff going on. And that's an issue because it's kind of marketed as, well, it's a custom HTML element, but not really when you build it with Angular. And the other one is this zone patching. There is a bunch of stuff, going on. And it can really mess up when you sort of combine it with other technologies working on the same page. Like, don't have to go far. You can have jQuery on your page. Like 80% of the web still has jQuery. And if you build, let's say, a reusable component and put there with Angular, Zone.js can probably mess up if you use like jQuery plugins that work with async stuff, because there are a bunch of plugins you would have no idea where your component is being used. Zone.js is kind of a big wrapper that isn't part of the framework, and it sort of is a barrier for the outside world. So also keep in mind, you will get way more awesome error messages if anything goes wrong. They improved it for bit with Zone, but still there is only just as so much as you can do about it. Without Zone, it will be just very clear stack of what happened and what didn't happen.
Gotcha. So it's kind of like a matter of how scoped can a component be. And with Zone.js, it can't be very scoped because Zone.js itself patches a lot of global objects, right? So if
Yes.
you rely on it, even if you're using Angular elements and creating a micro frontend, you're still patching a lot of global elements. So if you go on Solus, then you don't have that. That's interesting. Good point.
If you bring an Angular component into some other application, you are bringing stuff that is interfering with the window. Of course, use the symbols and stuff and so on, but
Mhm.
still, like, your set timeout calls are getting patched, okay? Because it listens to async events like that to perform change detection and so on. And
Yep.
is it a very good
Mm,
idea?
yeah, I think it's an interesting point. I have actually worked in the past with micro frontends. We had also a communication between those micro frontends, and we had the global state or global store for all of them. But honestly, I don't remember any problem that I have seen and that I can say, oh, that problem could be solved now with zoneless. So we had at the time NGXS as state management. library, but yeah, maybe it depends from app to app and from which features are they. But maybe this interoperability issue could be maybe better explained with concrete examples that we can show how, so this is the problem and how it will be solved.
Oh, trust me, no one has ever had that issue. We just like to pretend in the community
Okay,
that
yeah.
we had, because uh, obviously there is hypothetically an issue that can arise with all those wrappers. But for starters, not very many people do micro frontends at all,
Yeah.
and not very many people do micro frontends with Angular. So it's just a good improvement. It's just not the main selling point, I would say. Like Zonal is great for bunch of other stuff, and micro frontends is just, yeah, okay, if you had any problems there, you probably don't have them now. Okay. That's like the
Maybe
well.
as a problem that we see often is that when your change are not detected, you you try this CDRF change detection reference and so on, and you try a lot of workarounds and maybe a bit of dirty ways, and it you feel that it's very hard to detect the change, and you have no clue why it's not detected. Though although you have already considered the immutability issue and so on. I don't know if this is one of the main issues that could be solved with Zondas.
I think it will be solved with Signal, introducing Signal, because I think when people start using Signal and on push, they kind of no need to much worry about updating the like
Oh,
change it as a reference and all. So it, I think combinedly, slowly, when we'll have zoneless release, with if you see like 3 4 release back from 16 small features, and combinedly it will help a lot in the future.
actually, I'm sorry, but I really would love to add the point that this new change detection is actually already in the framework, and it's kind of stable. And it just works now in parallel with Zone.
Mm.
Okay, so now if you update signals, well, updating a signal is a synchronous action, right?
Yeah.
And in Angular with Zone, we know that the updates to the UI only happen with async stuff, right? So set timeout, I don't know, promises resolve, and so on. But now you have signals which you update synchronously, and with this new change detection, it's already baked in version 18. It will update the UI independent from Zone.js. Okay, you can just add the provide zoneless and whatever to say, okay, I don't need zoneless at all for no scenarios. Potentially, if you are only using signals, like if you begin a new application and you say to yourself, okay, I'm just going to use signals everywhere, then you probably should be fine. Because detecting if a signal has changed is a way simpler task, right, than patching APIs, listening to them, listening to some application ref tick, blah blah blah, whatever we have with Zone. Now signals are a part of Angular, so they can easily notify that, okay, my value has changed if you have to update UI. I think, I don't remember who was it on Twitter, but it was really short and beautiful explanation of now with signals and zoneless, you can think of the template as being wrapped in an effect of a signal. And it kind of makes sense. Signals would, just like with effect, signals will say, okay, I've changed, update this part of the UI, and so on. Of course, classical change detection will just continue to work as it used to. It will just become granular. Change detection itself is not changing. That's what's important for us to answer. The scheduling of change detection is changing.
Yep. Good point. All right, let's move on to some of the other stuff that we had on Angular 18. So, besides zoneless, what else that is interesting there is to talk about?
I think the
What would
default
you say?
content projection. Yeah. that's a nice feature actually, especially when we
Mm.
have some shared content, and it allows me, for example, to avoid some duplicated code, and also to have some, maybe to deliver some content for some uh, hosting component out of the box, and they don't need to push it or
Mhm.
to deliver it.
Yes, that is very interesting. It's a nice quality of life improvement. It's doable in previous versions of Angular, but it's just ugly. Like I have this little snippet of code that you create a wrapper element around the empty space, and then you check if the inner HTML is empty or not. It's like you look at it and you think, I don't really want to write that, but that is actually the safest way to do this operation. So it's good that now we can have default fallback content for ng content. There is also a lot of other things that were experimental, or not experimental, but developer preview and became stable. um, but I think the other major thing was actually server side rendering updates and updates to hydration,
Yeah.
event replay. There was a lot of things around that area.
I really love seeing the updates to server-side rendering, and I don't care for them in the sense that I've never actually developed a server-side rendering app. We have like enterprise projects, and none of the clients care about loading times, LCP, and all of that stuff. But I hate React, and I hated that they were so ahead on the server side story. And at least now we're kind of getting back at them. Also, it works kind of fine. Although I have encountered problems with hydration when I tried a bunch of stuff on my personal side project, and but it's still very good. It's still very good, and improvements are nice. I love event replay.
Yeah, it's a great, a good step toward the interactivity and improvement for the user experience, and also avoiding that the user will feel a bit blocked till everything is ready on the UI, which could be frustrating or will lead maybe to lose some business value, especially for very big applications. Maybe even if they are not server side rendered, but maybe they use the hybrid approach with the mix between SSR and CSR. They could also benefit from this new feature.
It's also a step towards resumability in the future, and
Yeah.
partial hydration too,
Mhm.
which is something they. I think we had another episode with Jessica Yanyuk, if I remember correctly, and she was working on the partial hydration story, right? And there were lots of great promises, and it's nice to see them, roll out all of that stuff. Really exciting.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, a lot of things in there. I have actually built a server-side render website, which was my own website actually, and because it was a blog and I wanted good SEO, then I did server-side rendering on it. And what I think I mentioned this once in the past, but it's not something that I talk about a lot, is when I did server-side rendering was on Angular version 4 or 5, I think, the first time that I did
Oh.
it. Yeah, yeah. It was very in the early stages. It wasn't even called like SSR. It was just Angular Universal, and the docs were just unexistent. it was so tough. I remember that when I got this right, every as soon as I got it right, it started popping up more articles about how to do it. And part of me was just thinking, when I did it was so much harder. and but it's also good, that the community has evolved so much. It was so painful at that time to do anything with server side rendering. And I said Angular 4 or 5, but I'm not entirely sure if that was it. Maybe it was Angular 6. I just know that it was very, very early stages and there was no documentation whatsoever about it. I remember there was even a person writing a book about it, but the book never got completed. And I was like closely watching and waiting for the book to be ready. And I was able to do it, and the book was still not ready. But yeah, those were the early stages. And we're in a so much better position nowadays. The fact that you can just do an ng and the CLI asks you if you want to do SSR, that's huge. That really does make it easier for anyone starting a project to use SSR. Also, some meta frameworks like analog
Analog, yeah.
make yes, analog makes it very, very easy. I haven't really used analog myself, so I can't speak too much about the developer experience, but I have read their docs and I know that's one of the points that they address. So
Yeah, I think
I,
though the yeah, sorry, go ahead.
please
Yeah,
go
I
ahead.
was saying with server-side rendering with the pre-rendering as well, like the SSG. I think the combining, as you said before, like combining both makes sense for a lot of development. Maybe, but I think I was just remembering my current workflow. We are using React though for server-side rendering, but still, like for a micro front-end point of view, it makes sense to make a lot of sense to make server-side rendering than for an enterprise application. Mostly for the enterprise application, you have enterprise user who has quite fast internet, and also the scope of the application will be smaller. So maybe it's better to go with client-side rendering and with maybe some preloading stuff.
I find the hybrid approach also very interesting
Yeah.
because maybe at the beginning, when we think about SSR, we think about static websites, but the hybrid approach will give a new chance, maybe, or an opportunity for enterprise applications to use also SSR, but we need to decide which parts where there is, for example, no dynamic or real-time change in the DOM and so on. Those parts could be server-side rendered, and the other parts so will be client-side rendered, and which will be a plus or an improvement for big scale or large scale applications. Yeah.
Yeah, I think as we all are here, one thing just popped to my mind. Like maybe it's an off topic, but how suppose someone is starting a new application, how they should decide they should go server side or client side if the SSR, like the SEO is not a big thing for them. Any thoughts?
Is it a question or?
Yeah. I had this
So,
question for
for
everyone.
example, for example, let's say that I have maybe a big e-commerce application, and they have, for example, one of my pages are frequent asked question. This page is a kind of static page. I can use SSR for this kind of question or for privacy and I don't know such informations for the users. But let's say that I have some other views. For example, I have worked once in an application where we had an editor in the applications where the users could dissect a message. So they can select some parts of the message and extract
Mm.
them as a fields. And we were actually generating DOM elements in depending on the user interactions. For such kind of features, I cannot use SSR because the DOM will be changed in real time and it will depend on the user interactions. That's why
Mm.
I need to be more careful which pages, which I am sure they will stay as they are, no matter what how the user interacted with them, and which parts will be changed. Like for example, I don't know, shopping cart, it will definitely change and show new items and so on. Yeah, or yeah.
Yeah.
This is just a simplification for how to differentiate between what is more oriented to SSR and what's more oriented to CSR.
I think one maybe like a rule of thumb would be obviously this is a business question. If you are building a big I don't know collection of blogs or something, or a big platform that people use, or like social media, obviously you would need SSR so that people can load your app as fast as you can. And of course, on the other side, if you're building like some, I don't know, enterprise grade, for instance, we once built a dashboard for, foremen on the docks that were working with some paperwork when loading stuff on the ship. And this is like their job. They open this app every day and it's cached on their, I don't know, they use iPads, for instance, to open that one app. And you don't need to think about SSR there. So if you know your business case, it's kind of easy to decide. But if you are not sure if at one point you will have to have like SSR or not, maybe if you're just starting the app, it might be a good idea to just start with SSR, because mostly you won't have to change a lot in general. But if you already have a big app, switching to SSR will probably pick up some problems. Not that bad, obviously. But if you just started with the SSR, I mean, I don't think it will do much harm to you at the end of the day. You will just develop your app. If you're not doing like complex DOM manipulations, even if you are doing, there are always like these new functions, right? After render, after next render, you can just wrap that stuff. It's always easier to do that when you are beginning to code instead of like refactoring it. So still, if you're definitely sure your app is just going to be used, like a job,
Mhm.
like an enterprise app, then you probably don't need SSR, and you will never need SSR. If that client wants something, public facing, they will probably just want a new app, not just one page in your enterprise app that will be public facing or something.
So yeah, we need actually to consider the DOM change and the DOM structure. How complex is it? And the SEO, how important is it for our app? And also how important for us, is it more important for us that the user will see as quickly as possible something on the page, or that they could be interact as quickly as possible? Because with SSR, the user can see something, but they can't interact until everything will be available, all the JavaScript and all the events and so on. So there is an improvement. um the time to interaction is could be slower than CSS, but they can see something quickly, but they can't interact with it. It depends on the application also, and on the which kind of application we are talking about. For some big applications or some companies, even a delay of maybe yeah, 5 milliseconds, I don't, or yeah, or 10 milliseconds could cost them something. For other applications, it's not so bad to have such a delay. Or yeah.
Yeah, it also makes sense. Like I was just thinking about for a new starter, if they are starting up, because if they are starting with SSR, they need to deal with a lot of things which is not related to Angular. Maybe they need to deal with the server, how it's handling, how much traffic it should handle. Because with the client side rendering, they are just serving the file, maybe from a CDN or something. But now you need to do a lot of things. You need to your event loop leaks. I think a lot of things are there in the server which you need to be need to know about if your application might get more traffic. Yeah, so those things we should keep in mind and do SSRSs. Yeah, yeah, I think we can come back to the topic again.
Yeah. All right. Um, there are still way too many things to talk about, and we
Yeah,
haven't even touched on 18.1, which was released like hours ago, and just introduced an entirely new operator. But at the same time, we the time really flew by, and we're already speaking for 40 minutes. Before we start wrapping up, I want to make sure that we cover cases that maybe we didn't talk about that, but that might be relevant for Rakia. So, Rakia, is there anything that we haven't touched on yet, and perhaps you think that we should, like something that is important enough and we haven't touched? So that's kind of like a catch-all question.
Maybe the improvement in the Forms API, the new event subscriber that could. So now we can subscribe and catch events like pristine event, status event, touched event, and value change event, which is a kind of more refinement in the Forms API. Yeah.
Yes. So that specifically, just to make it clear for the audience, is it more than just a new property that was exposed in the form control in the abstract control, or is it because from my understanding that was it, right? It's a new observable that is exposed and allows you to listen to all sorts of events that an abstract control can trigger. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, nice. I gotta be honest, I'm still questioning the value of it. Like I see this as a very good quality of life improvement, but I didn't saw that announcement and thought, okay, let me rewrite that component to use that. It was just okay, we already have that because we already have the separated observables, right? So we can listen to the um, the status changes, and we could listen to, I mean, or am I wrong on this? Like we already had observables for that, right? They just weren't unified in a single observable.
So I think maybe the value of this new improvement or new observable, its value will depend on which kind of components or UI or features we have, because it will not be relevant the same way for every form fields or for every element. So me too, I have I haven't refactored anything in my code in order to use this feature. But in the past, I have seen some or I have worked with some components where the DOM and the events are a bit complex, and there were a lot of tricky user interactions that we should catch and so on. Maybe for such kind of application, this kind of observable will be more relevant and it will have more value.
Could be. Makes sense. Makes sense. I actually have not had such cases. So to me, I was still wondering about um, what was the big value delivered by that feature. But that does make sense with your explanation. Interesting. Cool. Okay. Armin, Subrat, how about you guys? Anything you'd like to mention before we wrap up?
yeah. I
Not
think
really.
nothing much from my side. Just have fun, guys. Have fun. That's the main.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's start wrapping up. Let's just do a quick round of promos, and well, let's start with Armin. So Armin, what have you been up to?
Oh, well, as much as on the previous episodes, I'm gonna promote my book, Modern Angular. I have some updates on it. Like 5 months ago, it went into early access, so you could read some of the chapters. Now, actually, all of the chapters are available, but it's still not the final version of the book. But the book is in production, is being copy edited right now. Hopefully, in several weeks, it will go into print, and that will be the final release of the book. So, of course, obviously, I'm super excited about it. And our today's topic is actually the reason that the book took a bit longer, because when we were close to finishing it off, we realized that in like 6 weeks, the new Angular version will come out and probably render the book kind of obsolete on print. And we decided to hold a bit to wait to see the version finally come out. So this is actually, because of that reason, the most up-to-date Angular book right now. Uh, Kind of not anymore after today, because we now have like the LED directive and so on in Angular 18.1, but it's not really the big stuff. So the book covers everything that we start getting after Ivy, essentially. So you have standalone components, how to migrate to them. You have better RxJS support, dependency injection changes, everything. SSR improvements in unit testing, everything that we have new in the framework. And the book is following like a project building format, in the sense that we build an enterprise app with the book. You can code along, and all the features sort of explained in the chapters are also done in specific formats. So first we introduce like the problem that we had previously. We introduce the solution on a new project, on the one that we're developing. And then all the final parts of the chapters also have guides on migration, how you can migrate to standalone components, how you can migrate to using the inject function and like the new guards and resolvers and whatever you have, and so on, how you can migrate to SSR. So yeah, it's sort of the handbook for anyone who has not been up to speed with the improvements in Angular and wants to quickly learn what's new in the framework and how they can sort of set their projects up to use all the modern features. So yeah, that's my book. I hope if anyone decides to buy it, that it is of help to you.
Awesome. All right, and just what's the name of it again, just so that people can search for it?
It's called Modern Angular, essentially what we have.
Okay, Modern Angular by Armin Vardanian. Cool. And well, on my end, I'm just going to promote the two companies that produce this show. So Top and Devs produces a lot of other podcasts, not just about Angular. So if you're interested in that, I'm also actually hosting the React show. I do love Angular more, but I also know about React, so I also host that show. And there are many others as well. So if you're interested in other subjects, be sure to check out all the podcasts available on Top and Devs. And Unvoid, which some people might not know exactly how to type it, but is with UN, so UNVOID. And the difference between Unvoid and other software development agencies is that in general, when you try to hire developers, they always charge hourly. And that's not very client friendly because you never really know how much it's going to take. And if there are overtimes, you just keep wondering, like, is this taking longer because the person is just taking longer to get paid more, or is it like really it really makes sense that it's taking longer? There's always this question, and it's just frustrating for clients. So Envoy fixes that by agreeing on the prices per task with the clients beforehand, and the clients only pay after the tasks are delivered and approved. So the clients also can do quality control to make sure that what is delivered is up to their quality standards before it actually becomes billable. So it's extremely client friendly. And yeah, so if you're interested in that, be sure to check out unvoid envoy.com. This is going to be my picks for today. Rakia, how about you?
Okay, thanks for the opportunity first. So I'm actually building a community with which was started with my Medium blog. I have reached today 188 articles, I think, on Medium, and I have also a YouTube channel. I will invite you guys to join it and subscribe to it. And maybe for everyone who would like to build their web performance muscles, I will invite them to join over 31K students and enroll on my Udemy video course about mastering web performance from novice to expert. And my second Udemy video course, which was published on April, there are also there over 3K students. And here is a bonus for everyone who would like to get the chance to get those courses for free. You can join my newsletter because I share the free access to my video courses. So my newsletter is Rakia Ben Sassi, together written without dot, Rakia Ben Sassi .substack.com. And that's it.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Subrat, how about you?
Yeah, I would like to promote my channel, which is Fun of Heuristic. So I'm not putting much content now, but yeah, I'm trying to be motivated again and start putting it. But yeah, we have some good content in the past. Please go and check them. Yeah, that's all.
Okay. All right. Guys, thank you so much for those listening to us. Thank you for sticking up until the end. Have a great week, and I will see you in the next one.
See you guys. Bye bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.